This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, I ask everyone about what makes us spoiled.
Woo!
Was it a big bang that I summoned? This is what a Joey sounds like.
Help, I have done it again. This is what a very sad Aaron sounds like. I used some Sia this morning.
And this is what an executive producer, breath of fresh air, Jess Vander sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
The energy between those three is, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
There was one thing I wanted to share. Oh, new index. Just like this isn't housekeeping, but we've talked about Waffle House Index and other indexes in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Someone shared the Lululemon strategy for finding the walkable neighborhoods when you travel to a city you've never been to before. And I was like, what? And it's basically like Lululemon is very particular about where they put their stores. And so if you're like, I'm in a town, I'm only going to be here for a short while, where's the walkable neighborhood? It's just find the Lululemons on a map and there will be like a nice restaurant and a nice cocktail bar and things like that wherever they are. I was like, interesting. File that away somewhere, but it fits in this like weird indexes that we sometimes collect.
Yeah, like the corner bakery strategy. If you're looking for the corner, it'll be there. Actual true fact, corner bakeries are always on corners.
Wow. I didn't expect that one. That got me. That I did not know that. And that does, I'm happy that is true. I'm really happy that is true because it really could not have been. It's true. Is there any keeping of house? No, right? We never have any housekeeping. We ask it every time, and it's like, no, house.
But sometimes then we do. It's just so spotless.
We're so tidy. I like us.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Hit us with the sparks. I feel like you're coming in hot today. I'm excited.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've got a thing. I am very interested in bringing to you not just a topic, but a hypothesis around the anatomy of a spoiled brat. We have been in my social spheres talking a lot about how to not rear spoiled children, and talking with some of our friends who are parents who are very concerned about this. And I got to thinking about what are sort of the, like, to even break this down, we have to start thinking about, like, what is spoiledness to then try to figure out how to avoid it. And I had some thoughts, and it is an unfinished thought, but I wanted to share it with you, and then I wanted your opinions on it. Your words. Okay, so just hang with me for a minute. The unholy trinity of spoiledness. 1, expectation, where to be spoiled, you have to have a higher bar of what you need than most people.
Mm-hmm.
2, entitlement, which is too much presumption about what you are owed. And then 3, to make it another E, enervation, which is too little motivation or will, or maybe it's like how the world works of like how like a miscalculation of how whatever thing will get done or will happen. I think.
Did you say enervation was the third one?
Yes, like not enough. So expectation, too high a bar. Entitlement, too much presumption. And enervation, too little motivation or action to make it real. I think. But I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think makes us spoiled?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Um, my brain is right now a little bit of a pretzel because the question of what it is that makes us spoiled, I think, is very different than the prototype or the cultural object of a spoiled brat. And so I'm for the sake of not taking us down a rabbit hole, and maybe we'll come back to it, I'm going to put a lot of my thoughts around like spoiled bratness, the inherent sexism, the parental judge. There's a lot in there that I find very interesting and decodable. But when it does come to the things that makes us spoiled, I do think that one thing that is really important is that like there is an inherent judgment within calling something someone, assessing someone as spoiled that actually says like, up, they are broken. Like it's because it's like spoiled food. You can't like revert spoiled food to be edible again. Like it is then trash. It is to be thrown away. It is beyond repair. And I think that like that element of calling something or assessing someone as spoiled kind of suggests like it is also a bridge too far. I can't think about an E within that. Maybe it's evergreen. I don't know. But like the notion that like it's kind of finite and irreversible.
Absolute. Yeah.
That's scary. Has that come up in those conversations, Jess?
This is the conversation. We're here.
True.
We're having
True.
it. I think it's really interesting you acknowledge this, and also like I don't think we should be afraid of bringing in the modern concepts of rot, of spoilage, but also of like rot as like brain rot and brat as being like a positive. Like I think there's actually like a lot of really interesting twists on this idea if we make it there eventually. But I think it's definitely like the sort of biological idea, the half-life of a brat getting far enough that it's like, nope, this is broken down is really interesting.
Oh, and to whom it is, like to whom that spoilage matters. Like it's, and I mean, I'm just running down that road. If it's spoiled food, there's an innate like, let me stay away from that spoiled food so I don't make that sick. Like because it is something
keep
for me
mold
to consume.
from mold.
Yes, yes. And the fundamental sort of thing is that like this thing that is spoiling, it's like core reason is to serve me in some way. Like it is only in relationship to me that I care about its spoilage. Like if it's just spoiled, if it's just like gone bad or whatever, like I don't think that there's a way to describe spoiled food without in some way hinting at, yeah, like it is no longer good for my consumption. Like that's actually kind of what's going on there. And I think that I don't know if it's too far to suggest that like, of course we think about the next generation or youth or those who are still growing up, whatever, as like something that's a part of us and something that like is in some way meant to serve society. Like we're literally bringing the next generation that's supposed to take us out of our current cave. And so if we've spoiled it, have we like let down all of humanity? Because they cannot be consumed and they will rotten others around them and mold others around them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to think about it as you know, in the way that we do sometimes of like, what does it look like to not be absolute, and what is everyone's spoiled brat score based on the criteria that just, you know, like if you did like a radar chart of those three criteria and like where do you sit in the way that, you know, if someone does a big five, you know, personality type analysis, it's like you're a 4 on extroversion and a 2 on neuroticism and whatever. Like in this case, like expectation, entitlement, and enervation, like we will all have some spectrum of where we are higher and lower on all of those things. The thing that it pushes me into is I don't actually view it at I agree the metaphor, Aaron, right? Like it does say like that there's no hope for you. Like if you hit a 5 on all of these things, then dispose of the whole man type of attitude, like too late, you're never coming back. But I think if I think about those arenas, like, sometimes life punches you in the face and can like knock one of those scores quite a bit down because you had a high expectation of what a thing would be like, and the reality was radically different and forces a confrontation on those things. And so in some ways it's a question of thresholds in my mind, in the way that we had that conversation at some point recently about the woman who was saying like she used to be like slovenly and gross, and just her threshold for disgust was like so high, like she wasn't grossed out by herself or the way that she would like throw her like dirty laundry about and not shower enough. And then all of a sudden she was exposed to a higher threshold and was like, oh, or a lower threshold, I guess. And all of a sudden she adjusted. Like in these cases, if life has been easy for you, I think being spoiled is often associated with like ease, right? Like things are done for you, or they just happen, or whatever. Like your thresholds get out of whack to sort of what is maybe like a mean experience in life.
Totally. And I think that's part of the thing that was so interesting to me about trying to break this down, and even like to interrogate what is, to your point, Erin, an inherently sort of value assessment of like, well, how much of that is actually, nature versus nurture? What if it's that actually as a whole, baseline expectations are just higher, or maybe just by virtue of privilege and circumstance that you're born into, maybe you just happen to have something that someone else didn't happen to have. And that bar is interesting too, especially in a time where we value self-awareness, consideration of others. Like the value on the opposing side is also at a higher bar. And so it's even more challenging for someone who is, let's say, predisposed to be spoiled. It's like it is the condition of is this is the hardest time to be spoiled there maybe has ever been.
Well, that's what
that's extreme. I don't know if I believe that.
well, what's, I guess, a thing that jumps out to me is even the linguistics of like one is spoiled versus one having been spoiled. Like it's like always like you are a spoiled brat. And it's not like you have, sometimes it's like you have been spoiled by your parents or whatever, but like I guess it's a little bit to what Joey was talking about. There's a built-in assumption of what the process was that led to this current state that is one of ease, and it is also like tied together with a sense of like worthlessness over any other potential process that could have gotten there. It's like you're worthless because of the process that got you to this spoiled state.
Yeah.
However, if we took a step back and maybe like, I don't know, just ask the question of why this behavior or why this mindset has come to be, what are the things that are innate to the person versus what are the conditions that have been set by those around them that have like led them to this? And then also just like, rather than rendering it as like a verdict, like observing the behavior. Like, why not just talk about like the behaviors themselves and then like move toward like how those behaviors came to be or how those mindsets of that person came to be?
But then again, I guess I wonder, like, is not all of this built around sort of like one's sort of default mindset, or or at least like in terms of a person being spoiled rather than spoiling of a person. That assessment is an assumption of whatever the default mode is and how that got ingrained, or and how ingrained it really even is. Is it contextual? I feel like perhaps one can be spoiled in a very contained way, like spoiled when it comes to pickiness around coffee. I have been spoiled for having for living in New York with tremendous amounts of choice and super high quality all around me, that my baseline expectation is to have better coffee wherever I go. I believe that I will be able to get it and maybe presume that it will be easy to find. And I don't expect to have to put in very much effort to find it, because on every corner is yet another coffee shop, if not one right next to it. And so you can imagine in that universe, sure, it's easy to become and not necessarily in sort of like a whole person assessment, or even as an innate trait. Like in that sense, it has been cultivated by an environment full of spoiling.
I'm really moved by that version of it. That's like so listless and so like disillusioned. It's like spoiling is actually not about the person. It's about your experience. Like you are no longer allowed to, you can't human as humanly as you could before, because you've already been to the top of the mountain. And it's almost like in that, in that place, it's almost like, even though we say it as like, I'm spoiled for this thing, it's like, oh, I've spoiled my life. I can't, like, I know my taste buds are no longer, I can't taste it anymore. I've gone nose blind to this thing.
Yeah, well, it's like the idea of, like if you fly first class for work or something, then it, the idea that it ruins like regular air travel for you because you had this thing that you're not going to be having all of the time. Similarly, like if you sort of like broaden your exposure to food and better or healthier food or better prepared food, and then it's like, I used to love SpaghettiOs, I don't want them now, like, but I love them so much, right? Like that idea that an experience can be spoiled by what's happening. But the other part of it is like, there are like historical, like proverbial references to this idea, and I do think that like ease bit comes back, like even in air travel, like it is easier, it is more comfortable, it is like less friction in the process, and in some ways that's why it spoils the less comfortable, more frictionful air travel experience, even if it is magical that you're flying in a Steelbird across a continent or whatever. But that like that Chinese proverb of like walk up the stairs in wooden shoes, walk down in silk slippers, about like the rise and fall of like family lines and things like that like, third generation prince type of ideas, where things become so easy for your offspring that then they are not equipped to contend with like the curveballs that life can throw at you. Like sometimes I just make things hard for Emerson, truly just to be like, she doesn't have any siblings. And so I've out loud said to Becky, sometimes I'm going to act like her older brother and just like poke at her and like toughen her up because I had that experience and it feels valuable. And I fear, because she's an only child, that she would be more susceptible to this kind of condition, which maybe is insane, but it's honest.
No, and I think this is the thing, is like, in some ways, Aaron, the thing that you brought initially was like, how aggressive of like attack is this to be like, this thing is worthless, it's spoiled, it's rotten. And at the same time, like, I think what we're talking about here is like that rot. There is a genuine curse of spoils, where if you do not have those other perspectives or experiences, that could be weakening, that could make you vulnerable. That actually is something that may put you in a very difficult place. The people may come for you. The people will think that you don't deserve, like it is a target on your back in many ways. And again, not to say that, if anything, it's like, how crazy is it to argue for, one who has all of these riches in every meaning of the word? It's like, you can't stand for them. That's the worst thing. And thus is the curse of spoils, right?
That might be like, all these things have just been just bursting in my head. One of them is, and Joey started to touch on it, I'm curious about like the internationality of spoilage, that term, like how how that notion changes from culture to culture. So for all you listeners who are not in the US, please send us a note at Critical Nonsense. What is our email address?
criticalnonsense@sylvain.co.
There it is. Why don't I know it after all these years? Because Jess is awesome. Email us about it because I'm curious how that translates outside of the US. But at least in the US, the thing that really is interesting to me is about the baked in assumptions around class, gender, and class and gender primarily, but even like intelligence is a subset of class. So like there's so many assumptions that are baked into it. The it's almost like when it gets used, it's enforcing the social contract of humility in American culture of like, no, we pretend that we are all middle class. That's what America does. We don't do that shit. You know, like that's like a thing. That's like a value that is deeply and contradictorily American. But then I do bring it back to the gender thing because like it gets flung around at young girls more than young boys. Like you hear the conversation about girls getting spoiled culturally on TV, on like in the media that we consume much, much more frequently than we talk about boys being spoiled using that language. And I guess the thing that I'm bringing up here is that like, how do all those things kind of interplay? The notion that like, you know, we've got, you know, we have all of this wealth. We are trying to enforce this humility because there are prices to pay for not being humble and aware. Like it's not that those things that don't pay a price. You do pay a price for it. But then also, why do we set this expectation more so for young girls than boys? And does it get back to like dowry systems and shit like that? Like, is that where it's coming from?
I think we treat young girls differently societally. Like I actually hear parents talk about it that have a boy and a girl child. And I've seen people online say like, it's okay if my daughter cries. It's not okay if my son cries. Like there's like you have to care for and do these things for girl children that you don't do for boy children. So I do think there is like a way in which culturally we treat, at least in America, how we treat boy children versus girl children that is quite different. You hear it in other cultures differently, right? So like in some East Asian cultures, you actually hear about boys being spoiled by their moms, not girls.
True. Yes.
Yes, and what is really interesting, I'm starting to figure out too, is like the value spectrum of some of these things. In that case, right? Like in America, we value hard work. In other cultures, ease is optimal. It's like, oh no, let me take care of that for you. Like it is a better cultural signal to have ease and to be able to flaunt it. Meanwhile, there's a really interesting flip, say, in cultures where debt is sort of part of the culture, where what you owe to your parents, as an example, say in Indian culture, and that they, you know, everything you do, you owe eternally them a lifelong debt. Versus in American culture, you earn like your earnings, like what you earn, and that's actually really sort of counterintuitive, or not counterintuitive, but like sort of counter to these elements of, say, spoilage, where maybe having a mindset towards hard work will help with the enervation, will help with the will and motivation. That might be good. But having too much of a sense of I earned this might be difficult when it comes to that presumptive entitlement aspect of, well, but it's mine, so I got here because of my culture.
I love that. I actually had a note on enervation, and I was like teasing out this idea of like, is there another thing that's about capability versus will? Like, because those are two different things. But actually what you said is the reason that was bouncing around in my head is because like we have a value judgment toward hard work in America. And so the danger of being perceived as being willfully incapable is like, that's anathema. That's just like, are you kidding? Like, this is what you in America, you make, you produce, you are. And if you choose not to do that, you are not a part of this society. And like, that's a real pervasive and expansive perspective. That's wild.
The only thing worse than being spoiled is being lazy in America.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes those go hand in hand or whatever. But like, yeah, I think you're totally right in that idea of we venerate these sort of mythological instances where someone, despite their circumstances, demonstrates sort of their like spoil resistance, right? Like Berkshire Hathaway. I'm blanking on his name.
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
Yes.
Warren Buffett, right? Like lives in the same home in Iowa that he bought when he first got married, and
Nebraska.
gives away, or
Mhm.
is it Nebraska? Yeah,
Yeah.
Nebraska. And like, you know, he will not be giving his wealth to his children. Like we use that as sort of this like very venerable demonstration of like what it takes. But at the same time, like Aaron, you brought up something that made me think about like rugged individualism and how like the fallacy of rugged individualism is just a sort of like high level of expectation. It's selfishness fundamentally. It's like I did this all by myself, like falsely. Like I expect good things for me because I am so potent or competent, or I do demonstrate hard work, that then like no one else like rises to that level. And in some ways, like falling victim to rugged individualism is just a different flavor of being spoiled.
It's so interesting that you bring that up with Warren Buffett too, because earlier this week, he actually announced that he was paying, Berkshire Hathaway was paying the most taxes of any corporation in American history ever. And in his press release, I'm paraphrasing here, but he essentially said, "Thank you, Uncle Sam. I'm hoping that your nieces and nephews get to give even more than I did." And
yeah, he writes a letter to the IRS when he sends like the check for his taxes or something, right?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And so this like expression of anti-spoilage, as like almost like exactly what you're talking about, trying to like be visible in sort of nudging people to remember what it is to grow, like what as an economy, as a country, in wealth, in all of that. Like it's sure more complicated than just that, but like kind of an interesting, it is an interesting thing that he is kind of the only example that we have.
I have to call out my bias too in this thing of like where I'm from and like the sort of culture and socioeconomic level that I grew up in. Like there is this veneration of being hard, and I do think I gave a talk about sort of the deception of comfort and the discomfort diet. Like I'm aware that I am sort of on one end of the spectrum, and I do these things like when it's 10 degrees outside riding in the wind. Like I don't want, like left to my own devices, like I would like to be warm and comfortable and all of these things, but it is like this idea of like anti-spoiled is like putting yourself through discomfort because you don't believe in the expectation that things will always be this good,
100%. I'm thinking about like generations that grew up in the Great Depression, like having money under the mattress. Like the idea, my dad does this, he's very much of the same camp actually, of just like live like you don't have anything, basically.
Yeah.
Because like it can all be taken away in a heartbeat. And like if you've ever known anyone who's grown up in a war-torn country,
Children of immigrants, yeah.
Children of immigrants, exactly. I was about to say, anyone who has been around anyone who has like come up and experienced that and experiences the distance between someone that you're close to from where you are and where they are or whatever. Like with my dad and we have this conversation regularly. Like there is so much more control and strength that comes from going the hard way, and you can actually like in so many ways you can like feel prepared to take on so much that if you look back and you see like your progeny softer than you, it's like you're not going to make it. I'm failing as the one who's bringing you up. Like, you can't be, this world is going to throw things at you that you can't even imagine. And my job is to make you prepared for that. Like, and that's my job as your protector. I think that that's like valuable. And I also do think that that's different than spoilage. I do think that like the judgment rendered by others who say, well, that one's too far gone, they'll never be able to make it, is different than what I think is venerable and protecting against a really ruthlessly unfair and unkind world. I'm just saying that you're a good person, Joey. You're a good dad and a good person. And but I say that because it's interesting having this conversation because it's laced with innate judgments that are so American in nature. And it's like, none of us are like judging each other or anything like that. We're just pulling this interesting thing apart. But it's amazing to think about how deeply these things are intertwined with how we exist.
Well, and like the values that exist at different like rungs of the ladder, right?
Yes.
Like the idea of feeling, like sometimes people talk about feeling like, you know, I grew up in like very blue collar environment, and I feel sort of values misaligned sometimes if I'm in like a situation with people that didn't grow up in that same situation or are no longer in that, like not in a way where I'm judging them. I'm like, oh, I feel out of place here. Like I don't, what is it like to have that expectation or like those types of things that I don't recognize myself in it. And so then but then if you have a child who is then growing up in that environment, like they will also have a values misalignment because that was their experience, right?
Right, exactly.
You know, and I think that a lot of people come from that background. Like the majority, just from a numbers perspective, are not going to come from that place that child comes from. They're going to come from another one.
Well, I mean, we've got to our spoiled spectrum. Jessica, do you want to take us to our corner of spoils, wherein we will all be read to filth by our radar chart of spoilage?
Of spoilage? Yeah, I mean, I think we really got deep into all of the various things that can lead to spoiling, that so much of it actually can be driven by what we experience, especially growing up, that has this very lasting imprint for however we go about our world, what we expect, what sort of values we look for in other people, and how we sort of compare ourselves to them, and how that can differ in so many different places, but certainly in the United States, that there is this very specific flavor of how, you know, we assess what it looks like to be spoiled, and how that is undesirable. But at the same time, can we also acknowledge the curse of spoils? And if you happen to, grow up in that context, what sort of is the onus on you to sort of combat or challenge some of those perspectives that you're used to? I don't know if we know that we've solved spoiling at the end of all of this, but I think not. But I think that it's exciting to think that we can appreciate both sides and understand the plight of the spoiled, and also the environments that lead to such spoiling, and how we can, I don't know, just continue to microanalyze how we can possibly try to make our world better generation by generation.
That sounds perfect. Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by Decay. Crumbling and falling apart.
As always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and human compost bin.
Gross. We'd also like to thank our sound engineer and role model, Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator, and mycelial network, Les Jacobs.
And thanks to our production crew, the hardest working, Sarah Gilbert, Nora Mestrich, Christy Jensen, Amanda Medina, and Amy Waters.
And as always, thanks, Ellen.
Thanks.
Special thanks. Guess what I learned recently?
What?
That the fungus that makes trees decay only started existing like 300 million, 350 million years ago. So before that, there was just tons of fire because trees would fall down and there'd just be like kindling everywhere. And then along came the like forest decay fungus that then started breaking things down. So it wasn't just like constant fires everywhere.
When you said recently, you were like 300. I was like 300 years ago. And then you said million. I was like, yes, that makes good sense. Right. Yes. Yeah. Cool. 300 million years ago when our world was ablaze.
Yeah. Recent on the cosmological scale.
Yes. Right. Very much so.
So thanks, fungus.
Thanks, fungus. For sure, thanks, fungus. Yeah, I'm going to give a +1 to thanks for fungus. You are all powerful, and I'm scared of you. So thank you so much, and don't come for me.
Yeah, don't. We're your friends. We're totally your friends. I think we did it.
I think so. Great work.
Fungus among us. Love you. Mean it. Bye.